Only what is not you can give you what is really you. You have nothing at all to give to yourself, and you have to see that so clearly that you want to simply give up all efforts to try to give yourself happiness, give yourself direction in life, give yourself a feeling of feeling good. It has to be absolutely a convincing fact in your mind that you can't give yourself anything. And when that is done, then you become one of the greatest types of human beings, spiritually speaking, because you become a receiver. Now you're not a receiver of anything on a high level. You're only receiving what you give yourself. And that gives you only a repetition of the sad and confused day that you now have. I want you to think, therefore, of the word receive, and from now on, give it a very, very high value, a new value. The word receiving, but always in connection with the idea I first gave you, that you cannot give yourself anything of true value, of what's authentically good for you. You can only invent in your own mind what you think is good for you. Then you can get all of that you want from yourself, but it will still keep you sad. You won't change your nature. You won't change the way you see and feel all of life. So, receive any variation of the word you want, is now going to become something you're going to think from and see that you can't receive anything of lasting worth for yourself, from yourself, but you can only get it from something that is not you. Now you're going to have to try to think, aren't you? You've already started trying to think what it is that is going to give you something higher. Because you've been told that you can't give it to yourself, your own mind, your own emotions, your own physical work, even that can't give you anything that's lasting, anything that's going to give you authentic satisfaction. If you can't give yourself anything of real value, then who is going to give it to you? Don't invent the word God. Don't invent higher force from your own imagination, from the way your mind presently operates, because that will simply become you again. And you'll be a mechanical human being, talking, thinking, even feeling what you call religious, spiritual emotions, which are nothing but the same old repetition of the self-definition of God. The force, the higher plane, that can give you what is really you, that force is not you. It is something beside you, outside of you, above you. So what can you do to make contact? You can understand it. That's the one thing that you, as a human being who's enmeshed and immersed inside yourself, with all the deceits and all the frantic explaining to yourself, you explain to yourself that you need no explanations, don't you? And you talk to other people to try to get their support of your explanation that you need explanation, no explanation, and they'll agree with you because they're doing the same thing. You have no friend, no helper. You have no guide at all in this world in the form of a human personality, a human being. None. Forget it. So that you don't seek support for your own delusions, which is what you're doing. I know you. You associate with people who are like you so that you can get them to lean on you and you lean on them and you both fall down. Now, what are you going to do with the fact that as you are, You are hopeless and helpless to change yourself, to find something different, to become happy. Simple term. What are you going to do with the fact that you can do absolutely nothing to make yourself a pleasant, pleasant, happy, free, self-wholesome human being? What are you going to do with that fact that you can do nothing? I told you what you can do, and you had better do it right now, because if you don't, you won't change, and you can do nothing but keep going downhill. What you can do is want to understand it, and if you want to understand it, you will. See how easy it is to explain what you must do, and watch your opposition already. You don't want to receive from the revelation that you would have if you did things right. You don't want to receive from the revelation of higher places, because you take that as the enemy. Is it such a shocking fact to you that most people take truth as the enemy? I want you to know it for yourself, that is your present state in life. Having taken yourself, your accumulated experiences and ideas and self-definitions, having taken that as the friend, having called that the friend, the helper, the guide, you have created the enemy, which is the truth itself. Because you are not the truth. You don't know what you're doing at any time over anything. How many decisions just today so far, and it's only a little after 9 in the morning, how many decisions already baffled and maybe even enraged you? Because you looked around and you called yourself a person who was decisive in your imagination. You called yourself that, and you looked around for a decision, a choice to make on what to do over something at home or on the way here, and you couldn't find an answer. This experience is habitual with you. Looking around trying to find something that you can never find. Now, I told you can never find it inside yourself, so you might as well give up right now. If you give up right now, you will be obeying God. You haven't done that. You've been obeying yourself. All you've got is a collection of your views, of your attitudes, your beliefs, your stubbornnesses. You've got that, and you refer to that. And because it's all you have, you say, I'd better cling to that, because that's all there is. Who said that that's all there is you? You did. You did. You did. You said that's all there is. You're not going to take that away from me. Look, listen to me. What's the point of living a life in which you have nothing real to live for? Well, let's play the naming game again. Let's play the naming game. Join me in a little game, will you? What real, lasting value do you have to live for? I'm waiting. Answer inside you. What real value? What's good? What's authentically and finally satisfying inside you that you have to live for? You have nothing. You have an awful lot to suffer for, don't you? Suffer for and from. Well, what do you do but suffer from yourself daily, endlessly, and with increasing pain, and with a shriek? The shriek, when is this awful persecution and anguish, when is it going to end? That's what you say in secret, not in public, because you're putting on your phony act. I'll tell you when it's going to end. Never, unless you love truth more than you love your present self. Switch the phrasing of that. Your secret, hidden anguish, pain, confusion can end any time you choose to listen to truth instead of listening to yourself. What a marvelous day it will be for you if you listen and obey the simple instructions just in the first few minutes, so that one day you can say, you want a marvelous experience that you've never had before, you don't even know exists. An experience in which you will be able to say authentically and truly, I'm glad I'm not the person I used to be. You can't do that now. You can't now say, I'm glad I'm not the person I used to be, because you've never had the experience. You're always who you are. There's no new person looking back and seeing what you used to be so that you can see the difference in the two. You're always what you used to be. You're always what you are. When you go out of here, I want you to remember what I just said. You are always what you are, and that is the wrong life. That is what anyone can settle for. I thought you didn't want to settle for that anymore. I thought you wanted something new and higher. I thought you wanted to understand that you don't have to be you anymore. And if you do, you want to come back here all the time and pursue these things. Pursue them with all your energy and all your heart. If you want to do that, truth itself will guarantee that you'll say that one day. I'm so glad I'm not the person I used to be. Well, you are now what you are. And would you care to, while I'm talking, describe what you are to yourself? What are you? See, this room here releases. It releases you from the strain and the pain and the necessity of pretending that you're good. Pretending that you're intelligent. I release all of you now from all pretense whatever. And I allow you, permit you, to receive the instruction that no matter what you see inside yourself, just go ahead and see it. See how you're ready to break down at any moment, aren't you? Yeah, you're ready to break down at any moment. When's it going to happen? When you get home and no one is around and you break down and cry? Or maybe you break down into a furious rage because the enemy is out there and you don't know who the enemy is. You want to fight the enemy and destroy the enemy, but you don't know who it is. And you don't have any weapons. All you know is your rage over whatever is happening to you, whatever is going on. This is what is dwelling inside of you. Yes. Would you nod your head to that inwardly? If you will, you're on the way. This means, when I say that you can be released from your front, your pretenses, that I know something that you don't know. And what I know is that the enemy that you've conjured up, pictured, and suffered from so much is a part of the you nature, the old nature, part of the imagination, and you have created that enemy falsely, not knowing that you don't have to create it, but you think that you have to create the enemy, for example, of hating yourself. That's a negative thing to hate you. You've called yourself bad names because you think that helps to create a you that you can depend on. But you can't depend on yourself. I told you that at the very start. You can't depend on yourself because there's no self there to depend on. And when you know that there's no self there, then you'll give up that kind of false dependency, which leave you with only one thing left to depend on, which is not you, which is something that is apart from you, something that can reveal to you who you really are. I asked you a couple minutes ago to describe and define yourself, what you're really like. Oh, you had 1,000 directions you could go to at once. It was all very chaotic, wasn't it? And you didn't know how to follow the instructions. When you're able to say, I'm glad I'm not who I used to be, if someone was to ask you who you are, you wouldn't think about it at all. There would be no hesitation at all. No confusion. There would be no choosing of several courses to take. Should I tell that person that my country I live in, my age, my name, should I tell them that? Or should I describe the invisible features? Should I tell him that I try to be that kind of a person I am? I try to be a sincere person. I try to be helpful to others. See, you wouldn't have any sort of this chaos and confusion and frustration at all. What would happen to you if you know who you are and someone asks you who you are, you just know. Now, you find it hard to understand that because you're saying, well, I've got to use my mind, don't I? No, that's the last thing you want to use is your mind. What's your mind done to you? Well, who do you think got you into all this grief that you're in? Your mind. With all the junk, the nonsense that everybody gave to you and you stored up calling it sense because that's all anyone ever gave you. You'd better remember what I said about receiving and receiving from a higher source. Someone asks you, who are you? You absolutely know. And I can give you definitions of who you are when you know who you are. But I'm using words to communicate, so don't you associate with words and don't you misinterpret them. Who you are, for one thing, is no one who you used to be. You're not consulting memory and saying, I am a person who was born in a certain place and I had certain experiences. All that is gone, because that's time thinking, isn't it? That's one thing. You're not who you used to be. Another thing is that you're a free, happy, liberated human being. Liberated from what? From you. What else? Liberated from you. You're someone who has no confusion, doesn't bother you at all. If someone does ask you who you are, you know. And who you are is someone who's an altogether different kind of a human being with a true new nature, who has no need to go into detail to explain who you are. When you know, all explanations are gone. Oh, how strenuous is your work now in explaining to people and explaining to yourself what you're doing and where you're going and who you are. You're wearing yourself out, aren't you? I set you free right now. You never need ever again explain who you are or what you're doing here as a human being on earth. And if you would stop the explanations which continue to build the false structure of the self, if you would stop explaining, you would cease putting all that labor in building it up. And eventually it would all collapse and fall. And then you would know who you are. Another way to explain that, when you know who you are, you're now living a spiritual life, not a human life. You're living a life that is finally, thank heaven, apart from you.